Tung Sakhur was no ordinary creature. With a cylindrical head, big round eyes, and feet that slapped the ground like wet towels, he was the pride of his neighborhood. He always carried his bat, not for fighting, but for knocking on doors precisely at 4:12 a.m. and yelling, "Wake up! It's Sahur time!" Every night during Ramadan, the town of Lembek relied on him. He wore a bright yellow sash that read, "Official Sahur Slapper," and his mission was clear. Wake up the entire town before the sun rose, using his voice, feet, and the occasional dramatic spin. But one night, things got weird. At exactly 3:59 a.m., a suspicious humming sound echoed from basement 13, the abandoned soup laboratory of the disgraced Professor Olivier. That same professor who tried to replace humans with talking potatoes in 2007. Tung looked at his bat. "Tonight, I do not just wake people up," he said. "I protect Sahur." He tiptoed toward the basement, feet slapping rhythmically. Behind him appeared his strange friends. Bombardiro Crocodilo, half crocodile, half accordion. Tralalelo tralala, a floating mouth that sings only in Mongolian throat singing. And Sir Edward Yolko, a talking boiled egg with a monocle. Inside the basement, machines were spinning. A pizza was floating midair, chanting in Latin, "Sacrum carbohydratum, sacrum carbohydratum." "What in the flatbread is this?" shouted Sahur. Professor Olivier burst from behind a vat of spicy broth. "You are too late, Sahur. Soon the town will sleep through Sahur forever, thanks to my sleep ray-topped lasagna." "Oh, no you don't," yelled Tralalelo, launching sonic waves from its vocal cords. The fight was glorious. Bombardiro Crocodilo jammed on his accordion ribs, confusing the machinery. Edward Yolko performed an elegant jump and rolled into the sleep ray, short-circuiting it with hot egg energy. And Sahur, brave, weird, magnificent, leapt forward and knocked the sleep ray lasagna into the soup with one heroic swing of his bat. Boom. The town was saved. Everyone woke up, ate Sahur, and Professor Olivier was sentenced to 30 years of washing rice in total silence. Tung Sakhur stood on the roof of the post office, staring at the sunrise. "Same time tomorrow," he whispered. After defeating the sleep ray lasagna and sending Professor Olivier to his culinary punishment, Tung Sakhur thought things would calm down. But peace never lasts long in Lembek. One evening, as the crescent moon rose and the air smelled faintly of garlic and suspense, a new problem emerged. The town's noodle shop, Supreme Slurp Station, began emitting strange sounds. At first, it was just soft slurping, but then came the whispers. "Tung, Sahur, your time is cooked." The whispers came from the noodles themselves. Terrified customers reported their soup bowls chanting recipes backwards. One man said his ramen told him his childhood secrets. A woman claimed a spring roll bit her. Tung stood at the edge of the noodle shop, his bat humming in anticipation. "This smells like paranormal pasta," he said. "We roll at midnight." Midnight came. He and his crew gathered. Bombardiro Crocodilo, wearing a chef's hat and wielding a ladle. Tralalelo tralala, with soundproof earmuffs. And Edward Yolko dressed as a dinner guest in a tuxedo with salt and pepper shakers strapped to his sides. Inside, the kitchen was glowing. Noodles hovered in the air, tangled like electric vines. At the center stood a boiling pot, bubbling green and whispering insults in 16 languages. And above it all, the spirit of ancient chef Murmuro, a ghost who once cooked dumplings so flavorful they broke minds. "You dare disturb the sacred soup?" hissed Murmuro. Sakhur twirled his bat. "I dare boil truth." Murmuro hurled a spiraling tornado of udon, but Bombardiro played a counterchord on his accordion ribs, splitting the storm. Tralalelo belted a note so sharp it diced spaghetti in midair. Yolko leapt heroically into the broth, releasing his salt load and purifying the spirit. Tung Tung Sakhur jumped into the air, spun like a blender, and delivered the final blow. Bat to broth. Whoosh! The ghost dissolved. The noodles fell silent. The next morning, people ate Sakhur in peace once more, their soup no longer whispering haunting memories or unsolicited recipes. And somewhere on the rooftop, barefoot and majestic, Sakhur whispered into the breeze, "Order up." The silence after the noodle incident lasted exactly 38 hours. Then came the kefir. It began in the town square. A bubbling white puddle appeared in front of the mayor's fountain. It frothed gently, giving off a faint sour scent and the sound of distant goat laughter. People gathered. They poked it with spoons. Someone dipped bread in it and vanished. That same night, a mysterious group in creamy white robes appeared chanting, "Far Men Tai Shun, Far Men Tai Shun." They called themselves the Cult of the Cursed Kefir. Led by a pale, glassy-eyed man known only as the Churned One, they began converting townspeople with their dairy dogma. Each convert gained lactose powers, milk vision, cheese skin, yogurt breath. It had to be stopped. Tung Sakhur returned from his silent retreat. He had spent the last day whispering to potatoes in a cave, and saw what had become of Lembek. He called his crew. Bombardiro Crocodilo arrived wearing goggles and a thermal flask jetpack. Tralalelo Tralala wore gloves made of grated cheese to infiltrate the enemy unnoticed. Eggward Yolko returned with an ancient artifact, the Spoon of Destiny. Together, they stormed the cult's lair, an abandoned yogurt factory deep beneath the public library. Inside, tanks of kefir bubbled ominously. Converted townsfolk swayed to the rhythm of dairy drums. The Churned One emerged. "You cannot stop the flow," he hissed, dripping with culture. Sakhur stepped forward. "Then it's time to curdle." The battle began. Kefir blasts flew through the air. Bombardiro jet leapt and ladled enemy fire back. Tralalelo's cheesy gloves absorbed sour waves. Yolko spooned through milk armor, and Sakhur sang, a deep humming, the tone of anti-fermentation. Windows cracked, kefir trembled, and with one swing of his sacred bat, he smacked the central vat into oblivion. Boof. Silence. The cult members awoke, confused and dairy-free. Lembek was safe again. Peace returned to Lembek, but it didn't last long. One night, the moon cracked. Just a little, like a brittle cracker. Astronomers called it a tectonic fluke. Locals called it the Great Crumble. But the ones who truly knew called it prophecy. 3 beings descended that evening in glowing cheese wheels from the sky. They spun slowly, glistening with crumbs of intergalactic cheddar. They called themselves Velveton the Aged, Brielle of the Soft, and St. Curdivus, bearer of the Holy Rind. They arrived barefoot and humming in B-flat minor. Behind them glowed a symbol, a wedge of cheese eclipsing a cup of kefir. "We have seen the curdling," Brielle intoned, "and we bring warning." Apparently, defeating the cult of the cursed kefir had unleashed a dairy imbalance. The moon cheese was waking. It had slept for millennia inside the lunar crust. But the shockwave of Sakhur's sacred bat strike had cracked its slumber. Now it stirred, hungered. It sought snacks. Lunar gravity was weakening. Crumbs were beginning to fall. Giant, glowing puffs of cheese dust began drifting down over Lembeck, turning hedges orange and cows suspicious. Sakhur didn't wait. He called his crew once more. Bombardiro Crocodilo had redesigned his jetpack to run on aged Parmesan. Tralalilo Tralala constructed a sonic cheese grater harp. Yoko returned with the ultimate artifact, the colander crown of calcium control. And Sakhur climbed a trampoline tied to a cannon. With one mighty bounce and a well-timed sneeze, he launched himself into the atmosphere. Space was quiet. Except for the gentle groaning of a celestial cheese, there it was. The moon cheese. Gigantic, veiny, dreaming. As Sakhur floated closer, he whispered, "Asleep, friend, or we'll all melt." The cheese stirred, glowing gold. But Sakhur reached into his satchel and pulled out a childhood snack, one single perfectly wrapped triangle of processed cheese. He held it up. The moon paused, sniffed. Peace offering accepted. It drifted back into slumber, wrapped in cosmic cellophane. Lembeck cheered. Sakhur landed in a fountain. The cheddar rain stopped, but Brielle's voice echoed across the sky. This is not the end. The sour cream constellation stirs, and the pickle nebula blinks. To be continued. The sky turned blue cheddar. A ripple of buttery light passed through the stars, and the moon let out one final sigh, soft, warm, and delicious. Tung Sakhur stood on the tower of lactose, holding aloft the staff of eternal snackitude. Around him, his friends gathered. Bombardiro Crocodilo, polishing his brie boots, Tralalelo Tralala, tuning her harp of Godi, and Yoko balancing a cosmic wheel of Emmental. Below, the people of Lembeck sang the hymn of the melting sky. But from the clouds came one last challenger. It was him. Professor Olivier from Basement 13, reborn. Now part aioli, part bechamel, and 100% revenge. "I have seen the pickle nebula, Sakhur," he rasped, "and it sees you." He raised the saucelans of infinite spread. The ground trembled. The cheese moon cracked again. And then, silence. Sakhur stepped forward. "No more crumbs," he said softly. "Only peace." He raised the staff. Light erupted. The saucelans melted. Olivier dropped to his knees. The aioli wept. All over the universe, dairy-based weapons crumbled. Yogurt bombs evaporated. The ancient cults of fermented doom were undone. The moon healed. The cracks stitched themselves with astral fondue. A new dawn broke. Tung Sakhur retired quietly to a hill of crackers just outside the city. There he sat, barefoot and smiling, his bat leaning by his side, as the children of Lembeck slid down mozzarella slides and danced with butterbees. One last time, the moon winked, and the world stayed delicious. The end.